The sound of laughter echoed through the school cafeteria, not the kind that brings joy, but the cruel kind that breaks a person inside. Emma sat alone in the corner, her tray untouched, eyes glued to the floor as a group of kids snickered and pointed. Her shy, fragile nature made her the perfect target. She was new, quiet, and wore the same worn-out shoes every day. That alone was enough for them to call her weirdo. If you're watching this, stay until the end, because what happens next will not only shock you, but remind you that every parent's love has no limits. And if you believe that no one should ever be bullied for being different, make sure to like this video and subscribe, because stories like this one deserve to be heard. It started on a rainy Tuesday. Emma had transferred just 2 weeks ago, and since then, she'd been doing everything to stay invisible. But that day, fate decided otherwise. As she walked past the bullies' table, her old sneakers slipped slightly on the wet floor, spilling her lunch right across their shoes. The laughter stopped. Silence. Then came the smirk from the group's leader, Brittany, the queen bee of the school. "You think you can just walk in here and ruin my shoes, freak?" Brittany hissed. Emma stuttered, trying to apologize, but the girl wasn't listening. She grabbed Emma's tray and dumped the rest on her head. The cafeteria roared with laughter. Emma ran out, tears streaming down her face, humiliated beyond words. At home, she didn't tell her dad, Mark, a quiet man who worked 2 jobs and always came home tired but smiling. He was the kind of father who believed kindness could solve anything. He always said, "Emma, the world can be cruel, but you never let it turn you cruel too." She just nodded, pretending she was okay. The next day, it got worse. Brittany and her group cornered Emma in the hallway. "You gonna cry again, little mouse?" one sneered. Emma stayed silent. They pushed her books down, and when she bent to pick them up, one of them lifted a chair from the side and slammed it down right on her arm. The crash echoed through the hallway. Emma screamed in pain and collapsed. Teachers rushed in. The bullies pretended it was an accident, saying they were just joking. But the damage was done, both to Emma's body and her spirit. When her father arrived at the hospital and saw her tiny arm in a cast, something inside him broke for the first time. Mark's eyes weren't kind. They were silent storms. The next morning, he walked into the school, not shouting, not angry, but calm in a way that made everyone nervous. Teachers whispered, students stared. He asked to speak to the principal, but when he was brushed off with a cold "we're investigating," he asked one more time, slower. "You had time to protect them, but not my daughter?" When the principal shrugged, Mark pulled out his phone. "Then maybe you'll talk when the world is watching." He went live on social media, right there in the school hallway. He showed the photos of his daughter's bruises, the medical report, and the apology notes some students had secretly slipped into Emma's locker. Within minutes, parents, reporters, and hundreds of people online started tuning in. The video spread like wildfire. By afternoon, the school was flooded with calls. Parents demanded action. Reporters showed up outside the gate. The bullies' parents, once smug and silent, now stood red-faced before cameras. The principal had no choice but to hold a public meeting. Mark didn't yell. He stood in front of everyone and spoke softly, but every word carried weight. "My daughter didn't deserve to be broken just because she's quiet. No child does. You teach kids math, science, and rules, but where are the lessons on kindness? You suspend a student for being late but ignore cruelty that happens right under your nose. That's not a school, that's a stage for pain." The room fell silent. Even the bullies looked down, ashamed. The board announced new anti-bullying measures, mandatory counseling, and a support club led by students themselves, one that Emma would later help create. Brittany and her group faced suspension and mandatory therapy sessions. But more than punishment, they faced something else, the weight of their own actions. Weeks later, Emma returned to school. Her arm was still healing, but her spirit was stronger than ever. She wasn't invisible anymore, not because of pity, but because people finally saw her. The shy girl who had been broken had somehow become the heart of a change that inspired an entire community. At lunch, one of the younger kids nervously sat across from her. "Hi, I get bullied too, can I sit here?" he asked. Emma smiled. "Of course you can. And for the first time, her smile wasn't shy, it was brave. Her dad watched from outside the school fence, a quiet tear in his eye. He didn't need to say anything. His silence was peace. His love had done what no punishment ever could, it had made the world listen. If you're still watching, remember this: kindness is not weakness. Standing up for someone, even when your voice shakes, can change lives. So hit that like button if you believe no parent should ever have to fight for their child's safety alone, and subscribe for more stories that remind us love always wins, no matter how dark the day.